going to talk about something called radians. So you might remember when we first started doing trig, I had you take out your calculator and go into where it said mode, that top button, top row there, and we went into mode, and we had to go about the third or fourth line down, and I told you that you needed to change your mode from radian to degree. And in that, I said that radians really are just a different way of measuring an angle. And so today we're actually going to talk about radians. So radians are a different unit of measurement for an angle. So it's kind of like when I measure the length, I could measure the length of my iPad in inches, or I could measure it in centimeters. And there's a conversion for that if I want to switch back and forth between them. There's 2.58 centimeters in an inch. So I could move back and forth between those units. Or if I wanted to measure the temperature outside, I could do Celsius or I could do Fahrenheit. The conversion for that's a little bit harder. It's like 9/5 of one of them plus 32 or so. It's a trickier conversion, but there is a conversion, so I can move back and forth between them. Or if I want to measure the weight of something, I could use ounces or grams. So there's different units of measurement for items. There are different units of measurements for angles. There's two of them. So there's degrees that we are familiar with. Some things we know about degrees. We know there's 360 of them in a circle. We know there's 180 of them in a triangle. Our other unit of measurement is called radians. And maybe that word sounds a little familiar to you. The word radian kind of sounds like the word radius. So as we're thinking about circles, we're going to think about a radius of a circle. I'm going to say the radius of this circle is equal to 1. This is going to be what's called our unit circle. It has 1 unit measurement of radius. Then what I want to do is say, well, if I thought about this like a hinge, I could open up this hinge all the way around. And if I went all the way around the whole circle, we would have opened up that hinge 360 degrees. Well, what's another way to measure going all the way around the outside of a circle? In geometry, we call that circumference. Circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. That's our formula for circumference that maybe you remember from a geometry class. Circumference, then for this circle, is 2 times pi times 1, or just 2 pi in this circle. So in this unit circle, 360 degrees will take us all the way around, but likewise, 2 pi radians will take us all the way around. Both sides of that equation are even numbers. And so we're going to go ahead and divide them by 2 and say that 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. This is going to be our conversion. Just like there's 12 inches and 1 foot, so I can move back and forth between them if I want to, 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. So we can replace them for each other. So let's look at some examples. In our problems today, we are going to be looking at converting between one and the other. So let's say that I have 3 pi over 5 radians, and I want to switch that into degrees. To switch this into degrees, what I'm going to do is take those pi radians, and I'm going to substitute or swap out for what I know they are equal to in degrees. I know that pi radians is equal to 180 degrees. So I'm going to do that swap using that purple conversion factor there, just like 12 inches equals 1 foot, 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. So I can take that pi radians and I can replace it or swap it out with the 180 degrees that it's equal to. Then I can just grab a calculator and do 3 times 180 divided by 5, and I get an answer of, let's see, I get my answer of 108 degrees. So 3 pi over 5 in radians is exactly equal to 108 in degrees. We can convert the other way too. If I begin a problem with, oh, well, that's curious. I just realized I had written down 2 examples and it's actually exactly the same as this example. I don't know why I would just do it and then go backwards. So I'll make up a new one off the top of my head. Let's say 136. This might not work out real nice, but 136 degrees. And I want to turn that into radians. Okay? What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that conversion factor, but I want to cancel out the degrees. Well, to cancel in math, we usually think about dividing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up 180 degrees on the bottom of a fraction because then those degrees will cancel. But if I'm multiplying by something, I can really only multiply by 1 and have it be equal. So I'm going to put pi radians on top because pi radians equals 180 degrees. They're exactly the same. Just like 12 inches equals 1 foot, exactly the same. So pi radians over 180 degrees, that's 1. Just like 12 inches divided by 1 foot would be 1. But with degrees on bottom, that will cancel the degree symbol on top. So now I'm going to type into my calculator not the pi, just 136 divided by 180, and it gives me a really messy decimal. I don't know if you see that or not, but 0.75 repeating. That's really messy. That's not going to be what I'm going to want to type in for my answer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the button that says math. It's the third one down on the side. I'm going to press the one that says math here. And then the very first option in the list says arrow frac. That means turn my answer into a fraction. So I'm going to hit enter. And then it doesn't do anything right away. It just says ants arrow frac. That means turn my answer into a fraction. And when I hit enter, then it does. Whoop, there it is. So 34 over 45. That is pretty messy. That's what happens when I make up examples on the spot. So this is equal to 34 over, was that 45? But I didn't type the pi into the calculator. So 34 over 45 pi radians. Oh, and then I just wrote it behind my picture there. So let's see. Try to write it somewhere where you can actually see it. Try it over here. 34. And now the writing froze. You know, this is just awesome. Everything's going great. It's fine. It's fine. I'm fine. 34 over 35 pi radians. Reconnecting. So radian answers are usually, but not always, going to be fractions. So just like in that blue example, it began as a fraction, 3/5 pi or 3 pi over 5 began as a fraction, and then we ended up with 108 degrees. In this problem, and it's not reconnecting, so I'm not going to be able to write it out, but your final answer is going to be that fraction, 34 over 35 pi. It'll still have the pi after it because we didn't type the pi into the calculator, so that pi is still there. So 34 over 45, it's that fraction with a pi. Usually radians are going to have a pi in them, not always, but usually, and usually they're going to be fractions, but not always. Okay, so this is our lesson for today. What are radians? A different way to measure angles. What is our conversion? 180 degrees is equal to pi radians. And so then we can move back and forth between them just like we can with inches and feet. All right, ask me whatever questions you have as you get to work, and I'm happy to help. Have a great day.